The snow was falling heavier than usual that night, covering the streets in a thick, silent blanket. Sarah pulled her worn coat tighter around her thin frame as she guided her 5-year-old son, Liam, through the dimly lit streets. His small hand clung to hers, trembling from the cold. She'd promised him warm food tonight, even if she didn't know how. The shelter had closed early, and the last few dollars she had were spent on medicine for his cough. Her shoes were soaked, her hope fading with every step, until she saw the soft glow of a banner that read, "Community Soup Kitchen, all welcome." Sarah hesitated at the door. Her pride screamed no, but her son's shivering body begged yes. Inside, the air was thick with the comforting scent of bread and broth. Volunteers moved quickly, handing out meals, smiles, and small doses of kindness. Sarah joined the line quietly, her eyes downcast. She didn't want anyone to see how far she'd fallen, from once being a dreamer with a college scholarship, to a mother with nowhere left to go. Then she heard a familiar voice. Low, warm, steady. Like a song she hadn't heard in years. "Next, please," the man said from behind the serving counter. Sarah's heart skipped. She looked up, and her breath caught in her throat. Standing there, ladle in hand, wearing a navy apron and a faint smile, was Ethan Carter. Her Ethan. For a moment, the world blurred. The clatter of dishes, the chatter around her, the hum of the heater. All disappeared. Memories rushed back. Their high school dances, his laughter echoing by the lake, the night he'd promised to follow her anywhere. Until life pulled them apart. He looked older now. Broader shoulders, faint stubble, eyes that carried stories she didn't know. She froze, afraid he'd recognize her. But Ethan just smiled kindly, handing her a bowl. "Here you go, miss," he said gently. "And for your little one." Her lips trembled. "Thank you," she whispered. He didn't seem to know her. Maybe that was a good thing. Maybe she'd rather be invisible than have him see what she'd become. She took the bowls and sat with Liam in a corner, watching Ethan move through the crowd with quiet grace. Every now and then, he'd crouch to speak to a child, or carry an extra tray for an elderly man. There was no arrogance, no distance, just warmth. Liam tugged at her sleeve. "Mommy, he's nice," he said, spooning soup with clumsy excitement. "He smiled at me." Sarah smiled weakly. "Yes, baby. He's kind." What she didn't know was that Ethan had seen her the moment she walked in. His heart had nearly stopped when he recognized her tired eyes, her trembling hands. But he said nothing. He didn't want to embarrass her. He'd wondered about her for years. Where she'd gone after she left town, after her parents died, after her scholarship disappeared. He'd built a life since then. A successful business, wealth beyond what they once dreamed. But none of it filled the empty space she'd left behind. After serving hours of meals, Ethan quietly slipped into the back office. "Make sure that woman with the little boy gets extra blankets," he told the manager. "And tell her she can come back tomorrow. Tell her she's welcome here anytime." That night, Sarah found a small bag left at her chair. 2 extra rolls of bread, a thermos of hot tea, and a note. "You're doing great. Don't give up." Tears filled her eyes. She didn't know who left it. But for the first time in months, she felt seen. The next few nights, she returned. And each time, Ethan was there, smiling, listening, never hinting he knew her name. They spoke briefly about Liam, about the cold weather, about hope. He never asked her past, and she never asked his. But every word between them carried a strange familiarity, like the world was quietly stitching something broken back together. When she laughed for the first time in months, Ethan's heart warmed. He wanted to help her, but without making her feel small. Then, one evening, the snow turned into rain, and Sarah arrived drenched, clutching Liam close. She tried to smile, but Ethan saw the exhaustion in her eyes. He stepped from behind the counter. "You shouldn't be out in this weather," he said softly.
"Wait here."
Moments later, he returned with a thick coat and a pair of dry boots. "I can't accept that," she protested. "Yes, you can," he insisted gently. "It's not charity, it's care." She looked up at him, puzzled by the way his eyes softened when they met hers. "You remind me of someone I used to know," she murmured. "Maybe," Ethan said with a faint smile. "But sometimes, the past brings us back for a reason." That night, as she held Lamb close in the shelter bed, Sarah whispered, "He looks so much like Ethan," and smiled sadly. She had no idea how close the truth was. A week passed, then two. Sarah started volunteering at the soup kitchen, wanting to give back, even if it was just washing dishes or wiping tables. Ethan encouraged her, pretending to be just another volunteer, but every night he found himself watching her more. The way she comforted strangers, the way she laughed softly with Lime. It reminded him why he'd fallen in love with her all those years ago. One evening, as the kitchen closed early for a private donor visit, Sarah was asked to stay and help tidy up. She didn't know the donor was Ethan himself. He usually visited quietly after hours, never wanting his name on plaques or announcements. But tonight, fate had other plans. When the manager welcomed the donor, Sarah turned and froze. Ethan was standing there, no apron this time, dressed in a black coat, a confident but gentle presence that filled the room. Everyone clapped, thanking him for his generosity. Sarah's breath caught as realization hit her like a wave. "Yo," she whispered. "You're the one funding this place." He looked at her softly. "Yes. But I never thought it would bring me back to you." Tears welled in her eyes. "Why didn't you say anything?" "Because I didn't want you to feel like you owed me," Ethan said. "I just wanted to help like I couldn't before." Sarah's hands trembled. "You don't know what I went through, Ethan. I lost everything. My parents, my job, my home. And I thought I lost you too." "I looked for you," he said quietly. "But you were gone. I thought you moved on, so I built this. To help people who had nowhere else to go. I never knew it would bring you back." For a moment, silence filled the hall. Then Sarah stepped closer, tears spilling down her cheeks. "I was so ashamed," she whispered. "I didn't want you to see me like this." Ethan reached out, gently wiping a tear from her cheek. "You're not what happened to you, Sarah. You're who you've become, and what I see now is the strongest woman I've ever known." Liam peeked from behind her, holding a drawing he'd made. "Mommy, he helped us." "Can we thank him?" Ethan smiled, kneeling to meet the boy's eyes. "You already have, buddy," he said softly. Days turned into weeks. Ethan helped Sarah find a job at one of his community centers, though she didn't know it was owned by him until later. He never flaunted his wealth or past love. He simply showed up. Every day. Eventually, when Sarah saved enough for a small apartment, Ethan came by to help fix the old heater. She laughed through tears when she realized he still couldn't use a wrench properly. Under the glow of the single kitchen bulb, Sarah finally said, "I never stopped loving you." He smiled. "Good. Because I've been waiting for you all this time." And just like that, after years of loss, life gave them both something worth holding again. Not riches, not perfection, but a second chance at love that had never really ended. As the snow melted outside and spring arrived, Sarah began volunteering again. This time not because she needed help, but because she knew how it felt to be seen when no one else noticed. And every time she handed a bowl of soup to a tired soul, she'd smile, knowing love can sometimes be found right where you least expect it.